On the last day of June, at 6:30 in the morn. Fuck. I rubbed my throbbing temples. My head was full of sludge from the night before, a dull, heavy weight that sloshed with every movement. That goddamn countdown was more punctual than any work deadline, and a hell of a lot more painful. Leo, are you deaf? The water heater. I have a spa appointment this morning. Do you expect me to take a cold shower? Isabel's voice, sharp as broken glass, slipped under the door and grated on my ears. Her Highness had apparently failed to notice me passed out on the living room couch all night. She'd also missed the memo, the marital contract rules of engagement, posted on the Sub-Zero fridge. Rule number 3, in bold red font. Ensure ambient temperature is comfortable and hot water is available at all times. I groaned, my bones protesting as I launched myself off the couch. I shuffled to the door and cracked it open. The chill from the hallway hit me along with her Ice Queen glare. Power flickered. It's coming back on now. I mumbled, my voice a dry rasp. I didn't bother to see if she bought the lie as I squeezed past her. She stood there, arms crossed, her ridiculously expensive silk robe without a single crease. Her brows were knitted so tight they could crush a fly. Her gaze raked over my wrinkled t-shirt with disgust. What does that smell on you? Were you drinking until dawn again? Leo, could you please have a little professional decency? Her version of professional decency was spelled out in the thick, legally binding document that had essentially been my bill of sale. When her mother, the formidable Mrs. Sterling, had pushed that stack of papers across the table 3 years ago, my eyes had locked on the long string of zeros on the final payment, and they hadn't moved. Isabel Sterling needed a human shield, a husband in name only to fend off the endless parade of annoying suitors. She also needed a 24/7 live-in assistant who wouldn't cause trouble, wouldn't make waves, and would preferably have the presence of a ghost. And me? I was a broke college student, parents long gone, drowning in student loans. I needed money, a tidal wave of money to fill the gaping, life-sucking sinkhole of my past. 3 years, a clear price tag, no hidden fees, an exchange of services for cash, clean and simple. Professional decency is. I moved past her to the utility closet, my fingers tapping the water heater's control panel with the robotic precision of a pre-programmed machine. I fixed the plumbing. You look at me like I'm something you scraped off your shoe. Don't worry, Your Highness. 7 days left. I'll maintain my 5-star performance rating. The low hum of the heater kicking on filled the silence. Isabel let out a soft huff of air, a sound of practiced contempt and boredom, like she was flicking a piece of lint off her sleeve. Oomph. See that you do. She turned on her heel and glided back toward her master suite with its en-suite bathroom, the hem of her robe sweeping across the polished marble floor without leaving a trace of warmth. At 7:30, I placed her special breakfast on the dining table, a kale salad with a calorie count more precise than my bank balance, half a soft-boiled egg, and a glass of ice skim milk. Her meal was a pristine, delicate affair. Mine was still a thought languishing on the kitchen counter. Caleb's flight gets in today, Isabel said, picking up her fork and nudging a leaf of kale as if she were forecasting the weather. He lands at 5. His family is throwing him a welcome home party. You're coming with me. My fork paused midair. Caleb Vance. I'd heard the name 100 times over the past 3 years. Mrs. Sterling would mention it with a calculated sigh during her inspections. Caleb is so busy with his work in Europe, or, Isabel and Caleb were inseparable as children. Isabel herself rarely brought him up, except when she was a few glasses of wine deep, or particularly annoyed with me. Then she'd say it with a tone of mixed disgust and baffling superiority. Caleb would never be so crude. Isabel insisted their relationship was purely platonic, a revolutionary friendship, as she'd once called it. But that didn't stop Caleb from anointing himself her one true love. The Vances were powerful, and Mrs. Sterling seemed more than happy to let the drama play out. And now, with my contract as the human shield about to expire, the golden boy was making his grand return to reclaim his throne. What for? I speared my own, slightly overcooked bacon and eggs, my tone flat as I mentally shuffle my afternoon schedule. To be your background extra and make the party look fuller? Or to make sure the great Caleb Vance gets a good look at the walking, talking placeholder he's about to replace? Isabel stopped, her fork hovering over the broken yolk of her egg. She looked up, her beautiful eyes narrowing with undisguised displeasure. Leo, I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm telling you what's happening. Her voice was quiet, but each word was dipped in ice. My request is a term of your contract. Understood? Fine. No use wasting breath. 7 days left. I consider it overtime. I stuffed the rest of the egg in my mouth and grunted a muffled, okay. At 4:50 that afternoon, I pulled the white Porsche Cayenne, a car I knew so well I could probably identify every scratch on it blindfolded, to a smooth stop in front of the city's most exclusive, low-key members-only club. A valet jogged over as I rounded the car to open the passenger door. Isabel stepped out, her heels clicking on the gleaming marble. She handed me her delicate clutch with the casual air of a queen tossing a rag to a servant. Hold this, and keep up. Without a backward glance, she strode toward the enormous, carved glass doors, looking less like she was attending a party and more like she was arriving to survey her conquered lands. The party was on the top floor. In the mirrored elevator, I watched my own reflection. White shirt, old blazer, hair a bit messy from the wind. It was a stark contrast to Isabel, draped in some fresh-off-the-runway designer suit, her profile sharp and elegant. The doors slid open, and a wave of heat and noise crashed over us. Dazzling crystal chandeliers blinded me, and the air was thick with a cloying mix of sweet perfume, cigars, and expensive liquor. A stir rippled through the center of the crowd. Isabel, over here, a deliberately loud male voice called out. Target acquired. Caleb Vance. He looked the part. A perfectly tailored white suit made him look tall, his hair meticulously styled. He pushed through the people surrounding him, his face beaming with an eager, possessive smile as he made a beeline for us, or rather, for Isabel. He opened his arms, clearly going in for a reunion hug. Isabel's brow furrowed for a split second, so fast I almost missed it. She took a half step to the side, smoothly evading his embrace, and instead gave his arm a polite, formal pat with her nude-polished fingernails. Caleb, it's been a while. The smile on Caleb's face froze for an instant before his eyes landed on me like a searchlight. He scanned me from head to toe with an obvious, condescending appraisal, his disdain palpable. He wasn't even trying to hide it. And this is, he asked, drawing out the words, the question dripping with feigned ignorance. Leo, Isabel said, her tone neutral. Caleb let out an immediate, undisguised snort of derision. Oh, Leo. He dragged out the name as if tasting its cheapness. He leaned in close to Isabel, but kept his voice just loud enough for everyone within a 10-foot radius to hear. Isabel, darling, the taste and companionship your mother found for you is, well, it's unique. Isabel's frown deepened. A flicker of annoyance crossed her eyes, but she said nothing. All around us, eyes lit up with the thrill of impending drama. I just stood there, holding her stupid little clutch like a hot potato, staring at the blurry, elongated reflection of myself on the polished floor. My knuckles turned white as I unconsciously tightened my grip on the hard leather. The words stung, a familiar cocktail of humiliation from the contract, mixed with a dull, nameless ache deep in my chest. Seeing Isabel's non-reaction, Caleb's arrogance swelled. He held his drink, a triumphant smirk on his face, and began to pontificate, showing off his world travels, name-dropping the new money players in the room, his every word steeped in old family privilege. Isabel nodded politely now and then, but her gaze was distant, a clear, offended detachment in her eyes. The party dragged on for nearly 2 hours. Finally, using the excuse of being a little tired, Isabel decided it was time to leave. I felt like I'd been granted a pardon and quickly fell in a step behind her. Caleb was on her instantly. Isabel, let me drive you. No need, she said, not breaking her stride. Leo drove. I stepped into the elevator and hit the button for the lobby. Oomph. A sneer, cold and sharp, breathed down my neck. Caleb had squeezed in with us, standing just a foot away. The doors slid shut, trapping us in a suffocating cloud of his cloying cologne and Isabel's perfume. He turned his head, his voice low but piercing, every word a tiny, barbed hook aimed straight for my ear. Listen to me, Leo. Be smart. The Sterlings are giving you a generous severance. Take the money and get lost. Don't think that just because you looked after Isabel for 3 years, you're actually somebody. Don't overstay your welcome. He paused, his eyes raking over me with the disgust one might reserve for garbage. Isabel has a soft heart. She's tolerated a toad like you in her presence for far too long. Got it. The elevator hummed. In the polished ceiling, I could see my own blank face and Caleb's, twisted with a smug superiority as he delivered his condescending warning. He leaned closer, the stench of his cologne and the alcohol on his breath churning my stomach. Where are you anyway? Just a dog the Sterlings hired for a temporary job. He spat the word dog with a vicious emphasis. Take your bone and crawl back to whatever gutter you came from. A piece of trash like you doesn't get to have any. The word ideas never left his mouth. A hot, torrential rage, a brew of 3 years of humiliation and a sharp, indefinable pain, snapped the last thread of my control. It wasn't a thought. It was instinct. I didn't even glance at the security camera overhead. My hand shot out, grabbing the collar of Caleb's expensive white suit, and with every ounce of strength I had, I slammed him forward. Crunch. A muffled thud was followed by a sickening squish and a collective gasp from the lobby. Caleb's arrogant face, in a move of pure, slapstick poetry, was shoved deep into the enormous white buttercream cake a waiter had been wheeling past. His entire upper body was buried in it. His perfectly coiffed hair was instantly matted with frosting, his pristine white suit decorated with greasy, colorful smears. He flailed like a turtle flipped on its back in a paint can. Amid the chaos, Isabel's shriek was the sharpest sound. Time seemed to freeze for a beat, the stunned silence of the grand lobby shattered by the impact. I wasn't finished. I yanked him back by the collar, exposing his frosting-covered, shocked, and utterly pathetic face to the horrified crowd. The fire in my chest made my throat raw. My voice came out as a hoarse rasp, but every word landed like a hammer blow in the sudden quiet. Fuck you. My eyes were bloodshot, spittle flying from my mouth. For the last 3 years, who do you think catered to her every whim, nursed her when she was sick, took the fall for her, and cleaned up her messes? That was fucking me. I shoved him hard, sending him stumbling backward, splattering buttercream across the marble floor. Caleb staggered to his feet, wiping at his face, his features twisted in a mask of fury. Leo, you're fucking dead. I'm dead. I was panting, my lungs burning, every syllable tasting like blood. Fine, pretty boy. Call the cops. Do it now. I lunged forward, my eyes like daggers. Let's have the police review the security footage and settle this. Let's have this temporary employee tell them all about how, while you were living it up in Europe for 3 years, your precious Isabel was being held together by the guy who was actually there to wipe her ass. As I spoke, I ripped open the top 2 buttons of my cheap white shirt, revealing the gnarled, puckered scars on my neck, a permanent souvenir from last winter when Isabel, drunk, had nearly driven her car into the river. I'd pulled her out of the twisted metal and deployed airbag myself, the shattered glass slicing me open. 11 stitches at the ER, which I'd gone to alone. The grotesque scars shone under the lobby lights. The gasps around us grew louder. Caleb flinched as if the scars had physically struck him. He stared, his own eyes bloodshot, his lips trembling. The threat to call the cops died in his throat. I stared him down, my chest heaving. A dead silence fell over the lobby, everyone frozen. The only sound were my ragged breathing and Caleb's choked, humiliated gasps. I saw Isabel, just a few feet away, the color drained from her face. She was staring at me, her body trembling uncontrollably. Enough. This whole damn circus was over. A strange, hollow exhaustion washed over me, mixed with an unprecedented, exhilarating emptiness. The rope that had been cinched tight around my heart for 3 years had finally snapped. Fuck, I muttered, my voice hoarse. With my last ounce of energy, I wiped a smear of frosting from my jaw. My fingers were sticky with the sickly sweet smell. I didn't spare another glance for the cake-covered buffoon in the center of the room, or for the pale, shocked woman beside him. Fuck the contract. Fuck the Van Cess. And fuck playing servant to the rich and miserable. I was done. This job was terminated, effective immediately, ignoring the silence, the stares, and any potential attempts to stop me. I turned and walked, my shoes sticking slightly to the creamy residue on the floor. I walked straight for the gleaming, revolving doors. I could feel their eyes on my back, shock, curiosity, pity, but I didn't care. Until, Leo. The voice was sharp and piercing, a shard of glass scraping my nerves. It was Isabel. I didn't stop. Leo. Stop. I said stop. The frantic clatter of her heels echoed on the marble as she ran after me. Just as the hot, exhaust-filled city air hit my face, a hand grabbed my shoulder, yanking me back so hard I stumbled. I spun around to face a pair of wild eyes. Isabel's face, usually so perfectly composed, was a tight mask of shock and a panic I had never seen before. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, and loose strands of hair clung to her damp forehead. Are you insane? Her voice was shaking, her fingers digging into my arm. Her eyes darted from the frosting on my collar to the raw scar on my neck, her pupils shrinking. How could you? That was Caleb, the Van Ceswell. I just looked at her, at the face I'd looked after for 3 years, a face more familiar than my own. I looked at the storm in her eyes, at the precious dignity that had finally been shattered. The triumphant rush from the fight was still burning, but a deeper cold was settling in. A heavy, soul-deep chill. I wrenched my arm free, flinging her perfectly manicured hand away. Could I? I twisted my lips into a sneer, but my voice was like sandpaper. Your Highness, the final 7 days? I quit. I pulled the folded, body-warm stack of papers from my pocket. They were thin, the creases worn deep. With a flick of my wrist, the documents hit the front of her expensive silk suit. They stuck there, crooked and absurd. The divorce. Papers. I bit out each word like a shard of ice. Your precious Caleb was right. I'll take the money and get out of your sight. Her gaze froze on the papers, then shot back to my face as if she'd been burned. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. The agreement was pinned to her chest like a ridiculous, damning medal. You, she finally managed, her voice a strangled whisper. The money. Your family was very generous. My eyes swept over her pale, frozen face, devoid of any emotion. The $3 million final payment. Enough to finally climb out of the financial hell that had almost swallowed me whole. Enough to have a little left over. And enough to excise this woman and the glittering, fake world she represented from my memory for good. As for anything else, I paused, my gaze meeting the chaos in her eyes head on. You're thinking too much, Ms. Sterling. What part of you exactly, besides the finger that signed the contract, would I ever have fantasized about? With that, I turned my back on her. The roar of the city, the smell of gasoline and dust, rushed in to meet me. This was real. I ignored the stare that was burning a hole in my back. The divorce papers made no sound when they hit her chest, but to me, it was a more satisfying explosion than shoving Caleb Vance into that cake. The wind slapped my face with the gritty taste of the street. It was rough, but it was real. God, it was so fucking real. The glittering facade of the club, behind me, was like a giant crystal coffin. Isabel was frozen at the entrance, a statue painted white on the verge of cracking. Her eyes? They were probably trying to burn me to ash. Let them. The transaction was complete. I was paid, the job was done. I bought my own damn urn, thanks. I walked away, the soles of my shoes making a slightly comical squish-squish sound from the frosting. I didn't care. My pocket vibrated. I pulled out my phone. The screen still glowed with that goddamn countdown. 7 days remaining. Fuck that. I'd zero it out myself. Hey, Frank. I answered, my throat still raw from shouting at Caleb. Yeah, it's over. I'm officially a free man. Got my ID, bank cards, everything. Yeah, I know the deal. 3 months rent up front, no problem. I just need a place to crash where the landlord won't be breathing down my neck. You can cover for me, right? Frank was a buddy of mine. He ran a custom car shop in a forgotten corner of the industrial district with a shoebox apartment upstairs he couldn't rent out. He knew my situation and had offered it up. No questions asked. Rent at market rate. No charity between us. Just a straight-up deal. The guy was 1,000 times more decent than Caleb Vance. After hanging up, I stood on the curb, watching the traffic flow. I was a mess. Cake stains, Caleb's stupid cologne, a suit that looked like it had been slept in for a week. I thought about hailing a cab, but figured they'd take one look at me and speed off. I pulled out a cigarette and lit it. The nicotine filled my lungs, and the frayed edges of my nerves finally started to settle. I was exhausted. Not from the fight, but from 3 years of walking on eggshells, of being on call for a queen. I blew out a smoke ring and watched it dissolve into the neon glow. The Sterling's 3 million? Money was a lifesaver, no doubt. But my life, my actual life, was finally my own again. This was the taste of freedom, a gritty mix of tobacco and exhaust fumes. It wasn't fresh, but it was right. The silence from my phone was unsettling. Caleb getting his face publicly planted in a cake. He wouldn't let that go. And Isabel getting a divorce agreement thrown in her face. She wouldn't be quiet for long. The calm felt wrong. Frank's little apartment was perfect. Peeling paint, pipes that sang at night, but it had one major advantage. It was a world away from Isabel Sterling's gilded cage. I could lock the door, heat up a cup of instant noodles, and actually sleep. But then my financial advisor, a nervous guy named Barry, called, his voice shaking like he had Parkinson's. And Mr. Carter, sir, your 3 million. It's not moving. I shot up from the squeaky couch. What do you mean, not moving? The Sterlings. They put a hold on it. They flagged it for a transaction review. The account is frozen. It's frozen. Barry sounded like it was his own life savings on the line. God damn it. I knew she'd pull something. The payment was cleared. A review now? It was a power play, plain and simple. She was trying to starve me out, force me to come crawling back. Not a chance. Okay, I get it. I said, my voice turning cold. Just keep an eye on it. Don't do anything else. I hung up and stared at the water-stained ceiling, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. Isabel Sterling, you were a petty, vindictive fool. You really thought I couldn't survive without that money? I'd once stood on a rooftop ready to jump to escape my debts before your damn contract saved me. This was nothing. The money was in the account. It wasn't gone, just sleeping. I had nothing else, but I was a survivor. The calm was indeed a sham. I'd kicked the hornet's nest, and now the hornets were coming. Barry didn't call again, but a lawyer did. The Sterlings had initiated a formal source of funds legality review on the 3 million, quoting a bunch of legal jargon that boiled down to one thing. Leo, you're not touching this cash anytime soon. Fine, let them review. I'll cooperate, I said into the phone, standing under the rusted tin awning of the garage. Frank was wrestling with the engine of a beat-up sedan, and the whine of his power drill was more pleasant than the lawyer's voice. They could drag it out, hoping I'd break and beg. They could dream on. Frank wiped a streak of grease from his face. What's up? That Sterling woman giving you trouble. Not trouble, I said, grinding out my cigarette but on the dusty concrete. Just being a spoiled brat. She's holding my money hostage. Shit, that's low, Frank grunted, bringing a hammer down hard on a stubborn bolt. What are you gonna do? I got a little saved up, you can. A warmth spread through my chest. This was real. Don't need it, I said, shaking my head and handing him a wrench. I won't starve. You got enough work here to keep me busy. Frank grinned, showing his tobacco-stained teeth. Hell yeah. You willing to get your hands dirty, Carter? I was worried you'd gotten soft. Screw you. I've slept in gutters. I shot back, grabbing the hammer from him and taking a swing at a rusted part. The clang of metal on metal sent sparks flying and vibrated up my arm. The sound, the impact, it was solid. 100 times more real than waiting on Isabel Sterling. I spent a week living and breathing grease, gasoline, and rust. Life was rough, but it was mine. Barry reported no progress. The Sterling review was a running joke, holding my money in limbo. Let them. I could still afford ramen. One evening, as the sky turned dark, my beat-up phone vibrated violently in my pocket. Unknown number. I frowned, wiping my sweaty hands on my jeans before answering. Yeah? Who is this? Leo. A woman's voice, high-pitched and breathless. It sounded familiar, but not like Isabel's controlled chill. Where are you? A name clicked into place. Madison. One of Isabel's plastic, fair-weather friends. In the past 3 years, she treated me like a piece of furniture, a handbag carrier, and a convenient target for her snide remarks. What do you want? I asked, my voice flat. It's Isabel. Something's wrong. Madison's voice shot up an octave. She's at Eclipse, completely wasted. She's trashing a private room, and no one can stop her. She's crying and screaming for you. She took a ragged breath, her voice cracking with panic. Caleb, that bastard, is here, but he can't do anything. She almost brained him with a bottle. It's out of control. Security won't touch her. Leo, I know all the shit that went down, but you're the only one who can handle her when she gets like this. Please, I'm begging you, come get her. The information overload hit me like a physical blow. Isabel, drunk and destructive, demanding to see the ex-husband she just fired? With Caleb Vance standing by, useless. What the hell kind of new psychodrama was this? A hot, ugly anger flared inside me. I just crawled out of that swamp, and now they wanted to drag me back in to clean up another mess? Why me? Not my fucking problem. I roared into the phone. She's trashing her own family's reputation, and if she wants to crack a skull, it might as well be Caleb's. Call her mother, call her brother, call 911. Why the hell would you call me? The disposable human napkin she hired just had his contract voided. Leo. Madison was full-on crying now, genuinely terrified. She's not right. Something terrible is going to happen. You know how she gets. She doesn't care about anything. You were always the one who could pull her back. Just this once. Please, just get her out of here. I'm begging you. I'm sending you the location. The line went dead. A second later, my phone pinged. A map pin glowed on the screen. Eclipse, the pretentious members-only club. Fuck, fuck, fuck. I stood there under the dim garage lights, smelling of motor oil, a fire of pure frustration raging inside me. It felt like I'd swallowed a fly. Should I go? Go to hell. What did I care if Isabel lived or died? Why should I be the one to clean up her disasters? I was done, but my brain betrayed me, old memories flooding back unbidden. Isabel, wasted, throwing up in a flower bed on a sidewalk, me carrying her home on my back. Isabel, at some gala, being cornered by a pushy asshole, me stepping in with a cold stare to suggest he find someone else to bother. Isabel, speeding recklessly on a mountain road after a fight, me wrestling the wheel from her hands, nearly sending us both over the edge. Pull her back? Clean up her mess? God, those words were painfully accurate. And now, my money was frozen, and the moment she went off the deep end, I was the first person she called for. The loyal dog she'd just kicked to the curb? She could go to hell. The damn phone screen was still lit up, the location pin for Eclipse glowing like a brand. I'm not going. I'm not a masochist. I grabbed a half-empty water bottle and chugged it, but the cold water did nothing to quell the fire in my throat. I shoved the phone back in my pocket and grabbed my toolbox, ready to leave. But my fingers felt clumsy, unable to get a firm grip on the cold steel. Frank's power drill whined incessantly in the background, grating on my last nerve. Fuck, I finally roared, kicking the toolbox into a stack of old tires. The heavy thud sent a rat scurrying for cover. Frank's greasy head popped out from under an old Jetta. The hell's wrong with you, man? Eat a grenade for dinner. I didn't answer, just stood there breathing heavily. Logic told me to stay away, that walking into that club would be walking into a trap. But Madison's words, something terrible is going to happen, and Isabel's screaming for you, were a relentless mantra in my head. It wasn't about being a sucker. It was that the goddamn habit of being her safety net was etched so deep it felt like instinct. And even more infuriating, the image of Caleb Vance, helpless and panicked while Isabel raged. Damn it, the thought alone was almost satisfying. Shit, I cursed again, pulling out my phone. Madison had sent a flurry of texts and missed calls. The last message was a picture. I opened it. In a dimly lit, luxurious room, broken glass and spilled liquor covered the floor. Isabel stood barefoot in the middle of the wreckage, her expensive dress wrinkled and stained, a broken bottleneck clutched in her hand. Her face was streaked with tears, her eyes wild and red. She looked like a cornered, rabid animal. Caleb was cowering a few feet away, holding his head, a dark stain visible between his fingers. 2 security guards hovered uselessly by the door. That look, that level of crazy, that was pure Isabel. When she was that far gone, she was capable of anything. The scales in my mind tipped violently. This mess, this was a 5-alarm fire. Caleb, getting his head split open, would be the least of it. If she hurt herself, fuck, one last time, I consider it a public service. Stop this lunatic from getting herself arrested or worse. And getting to see the look on Caleb's face was a bonus. Fuck, I roared a third time, finally surrendering. This goddamn cleanup crew hat was apparently welded to my head. I didn't even bother to change. I was covered in grease and rust, wearing the same stained work shirt. I ran to Frank's old, beat-up pickup truck, the one he used for hauling scrap, and jumped into the driver's seat. Frank was stunned. "Leo, what the hell? You're taking my truck?" "Borrowing it. Emergency. Don't ask," I said, turning the key. The engine sputtered to life with a groan. "I'll fill the tank. Double." Before he could respond, I cranked the wheel and slammed my foot on the gas. The pickup roared, spitting a cloud of black smoke, and shot out of the garage, merging into the murky river of nighttime traffic. The valet line at Eclipse was a parade of Porsches and Maseratis. My smoke-belching pickup looked like a stray dog that had wandered into a palace. I didn't even bother to lock it. Who would steal this piece of junk? I jumped out and ran for the door. A bouncer in a suit tried to stop me, but I leveled a glare at him. "Isabel Sterling, the one losing her mind in there. Her people call me to come get her." The bouncer, clearly terrified of the woman inside, immediately retracted his hand, his eyes filled with something close to gratitude as he let me pass. The thumping bass of the DJ hit me like a wall. I pushed through the crowd, following the sounds of chaos to the VIP section. At the end of a hall, a heavy double door was shut tight, guarded by a few nervous-looking security guys. "Leo Carter, here for the pickup," I yelled over the music. One of them quickly pulled the door open, and a wave of stale air, a mix of liquor, vomit, and perfume, assaulted me. The room was a war zone. Glass crunched under my feet. Red wine stained the carpets. Couches were overturned. The massive TV screen was spiderwebbed with cracks. Caleb was slumped in a chair against the wall, a bloody piece of gauze pressed to his forehead, his face the color of ash. Madison and her friends were huddled in a corner, terrified. A team of in-house security stood by the door, completely a loss. And in the center of the storm, Isabel, barefoot on a carpet of broken glass. Her silk dress was soaked in wine, clinging to her body. Her hair was a mess, her eyes terrifyingly red. She was still clutching the broken bottleneck, its jagged edge glinting in the strobing lights. "Leo. His name is Leo. Get him here. Tell him to get his ass over here and face me," she shrieked, her voice a raw, desperate sob. "You're all useless. Find him." She stomped her foot, grinding it into the shards of glass. I could see fresh cuts on her bare feet. She didn't seem to notice. This was 10 times worse than I'd imagined. "Isabel, stop it. Look who's here," Madison yelled, spotting me as if I were the second coming. Isabel's head snapped up. Her bloodshot eyes, stretched wide with alcohol and some terrible, raw emotion, locked onto me. For a split second, time stopped. The rage in her eyes solidified, then broke like a dam, a tidal wave of anguish, fury, and a desperate, unspoken plea crashing over me. There was even a flicker of something else, the desperate relief of a drowning person finally finding a piece of wreckage to cling to. "Who told you that you could leave?" Her voice wasn't a scream anymore. It was a sharp, piercing accusation, scraped from the bottom of her soul. She stared at me, the hand holding the broken bottle shaking violently, her knuckles white. It looked like she was seconds away from turning it on me, or on herself. The air in the room went still. The only sound was the pounding beat of the music, a hammer against everyone's heart. From the shadows, Caleb looked up, his expression a toxic mix of pain and hatred. Madison covered her mouth. The security team didn't dare breathe. She'd screamed the same thing at me on the street 3 days ago. This time, it was from the edge of a much more dangerous cliff. "Who told you that you could leave?" Those 6 words, soaked in blood, booze, and her complete and utter breakdown, silenced the entire room. The music was still playing, but it felt like the world was holding its breath. I didn't move. I just looked at her bleeding feet, at the deadly weapon in her hand, at the volcanic wasteland in her eyes. God, what a fucking mess. This was no different from being her servant. The only difference was that this time, the ass-wiping was a public performance. The last embers of my anger were extinguished by her question. I wasn't moved. I was just overwhelmed by the sheer absurdity and exhaustion of it all. This woman was still living in a fantasy. She still thought that shredded contract meant something. I took 2 steps forward, stopping a safe distance away. My voice was the sound of rusted gears grinding together. "Isabel, this is quite a show. Who's it for? Me? or for the genius over there with the hole in his head? I jerked my chin toward Caleb. He glared at me, his eyes promising murder. The contract is void. The money is in legal limbo. We're done. You don't seem to grasp the situation, I said, my voice low, but every word was a pellet of ice. Whether you let me or not is irrelevant. I'm not here for you. I'm here because I don't want to have to explain to the cops tomorrow why you decided to gut yourself or someone else. Leo, you. Isabel was shaking violently, fresh tears carving black tracks through her ruined makeup. She looked like she wanted to scream, to argue, but the words were choked by a wave of emotion. The bottle trembled in her hand. My eyes flickered from her bleeding feet to the bottle. That thing was more terrifying than any legal document. Drop it, I snapped, my voice loud and sharp, pointing at the weapon in her hand. I spoke to her with the cold impatience I'd use on a misbehaving dog. Go on, keep smashing things. Have fun. Take another swing at Caleb's head. See how many he's got left. When you're tired, you can pass out on the floor and see who the hell comes to clean you up. I didn't wait for her to react. I turned on the frozen security guards. Are you all dead? Just standing there watching the show? You don't see the weapon in her hand? You waiting for this to be a headline tomorrow? I pointed at Madison and her friends. And you, how much did she drink? Get her something to sober her up. Call an ambulance. Or do you actually want someone to die tonight? My shouting snapped everyone out of their stupor. The guards exchanged a look and started to move forward cautiously. Madison fumbled for her phone. Caleb watched from his corner, his expression unreadable. Get back. Don't you touch me. Isabel screamed at the approaching guards, brandishing the bottle. Get away. Her wild eyes darted around the room before locking back onto my face. She looked like a dying swan, her voice a desperate, hoarse whisper. Leo, what right do you have to tell me what to do? What right do you have to lecture me? Who the hell do you think you are? Get out. Just get the hell out. Me? Get out. I laughed, a cold, humorless sound. Isabel, you listen to me. This is the last time. I stepped forward, ignoring the danger of the swinging bottle, until I was right in front of her. The club's colored lights washed over my greasy face and her tear-stained one. For 3 years, I was the one who fed you, clothed you, and cleaned up your shit. I was the one who took the hits for you. I pointed to the scar on my neck, a jagged, ugly reminder in the pulsing light. When you were driving your car straight into a river, I was the one who dragged you back from the dead. And now you're here, destroying yourself, making the sterling name a citywide joke for a bunch of strangers to watch. You think this is fun? Fine. Be my guest. Smash what you want. Stab who you want. I'm leaving. But before I go, let me make one thing perfectly clear. My eyes were like two dull knives, scraping across her empty, frantic gaze. I spoke each word slowly, letting it land on her face and in the ears of every spectator in the room. Without that contract, without that money, Isabel, in my world, you're fucking nobody. I finished and I didn't look back. Not at her face, which had gone slack and gray. Not at Caleb's shocked and pathetic expression. Not at anyone. I turned. I pulled open the heavy door that separated our two worlds. The deafening music and chaotic lights washed over me. I left her raw, agonized sobs, Madison's panic cries, and Caleb's venomous curses all behind me. The hallway was long, the lights flickering. I could hear the sound of heels running after me, a desperate, frantic rhythm. But I didn't stop walking. Not once. The chains that had bound me for 3 years, that hysterical cry of who told you that you could leave, that cold stack of divorce papers, and that frozen $3 million. They were all finally, truly left behind in that glittering, filthy ruin. I pushed open the heavy doors to the street. The cool, dirty night air of the city rushed in. I took a deep breath. It smelled of rust and motor oil. It was grimy and it was choking, but the suffocating feeling was gone. The night was dark, streaked with the lights of passing cars. Behind me was the expensive, insane theater of the rich. And I, the former clown, the paid actor, was walking one unsteady step at a time back to my own peeling, noisy, grease-stained, real life. I didn't look back. A few days later, maybe Isabel grew a conscience, or maybe it was a reward for my heroic rescue at the club. Whatever the reason, my $3 million was unfrozen. I was still working at Frank's garage. It was exhausting, but I was free Frank was a solid presence, a constant. I heard that not long after that night. Caleb Vance tucked his tail between his legs and flew back to whatever rock he'd crawled out from under. I don't know if Isabel scared him off, or if she pulled some strings to make him disappear. Probably the latter. He followed her around like a puppy, and she was sick of it. With him gone, she started showing up at the garage. Every day, this stubborn, spoiled heiress, trying to prove she could handle the real world. Or so she said. She kept asking me to come back. This time, she said, it wasn't a contract. I didn't know if I should believe her, so I didn't bother to answer.